When you're plotting a novel, you need a whiteboard, you need red string, a compass, and at least 3 weeks, right? Well, no, actually, you could plot the whole thing on one sitting, and I'm going to show you how. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Katri, I'm your new writing bestie, and this is Protagonist Crafts, the place for people who are kind of obsessed with that whole writing thing. If you only know one thing about me and my content, it's that I'm obsessed with plotting and with helping my writer friends solve their plotting problems. And I love talking about how it all works together and how you can have this true understanding of stories, of your story, without having to refer to a plot chart to see like what should go on page 17. My personal plotting process usually starts with asking myself a lot of questions and filling a notebook with all of my answers and all my ideas over several weeks, but you don't have to do that. Maybe even I won't do that with my next novel because I created something called a simple plotter and it's only 3 pages long. Okay, so apparently I forgot to mention this in the video, but if you also would like to use this simple plotter, there is a link in the description in case it wasn't obvious. And yes, it is free, so go and take it. Use it. It's free, and I'm going to show you how to use it to plot your story in just one day. It's pretty neat, so let's see how it works. Okay, writer friends, welcome to my computer. I will try to remember to look at you and not look at myself on the screen. Even though I do look fabulous today. Anyway, here is... Where's my cursor? Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Here it is. So here is the simple plotter. And here on the first page, you can see all these links to some extra resources to help you out on your plotting journey. And also a link to your plot from A to Z so that you can get even more help with your plot. So yeah, let's see what you're going to have to map out in the simple plotter. So first of all, you start with the protagonist of your story, and hopefully here you wouldn't just like jot down their name. You would, describe them a bit more in length. This space will expand as you type. Also, if you want to print this out, then you can also make these rectangles bigger just by hitting the Enter key. Anyway, so you start from your protagonist. Who are they? Because your story is your protagonist's journey and what they're going to learn. And the plot, it doesn't just happen to them, but also happens through them. So therefore, it's also important that they have flaws and strengths. That's my nemesis word, strengths. I can never spell it correctly. It always comes out all jumbled. Why can't it be flaws and slows? Okay, that'd be so much easier. So what are their flaws and strengths, and what are they already struggling with in the beginning of the story? Because that is important. That is tied to your plot. And if you didn't know that, well, this is a good time to learn it. It can't just be random and just taken from a list, and you can't just like pin these things on your character. They have to be relevant, or at the very least, they will become relevant. So, and then what is the big problem of the story? It is also known as the main conflict, but I like calling it the big problem. And this problem needs to change everything. And there needs to be a reason why your protagonist can't just walk away from it. And it isn't enough that you know it, your readers have to know it as well. And sometimes this big problem is a big opportunity as well, like falling in love or getting a new exciting job on the other side of the globe or something. But it does need to be life-changing, and then your character needs to struggle with it, and because of it. And even if it does sound like a good thing in the beginning or a good, exciting thing, there needs to be some kind of like, but things attached to it so that your character is struggling and you need to pull the carpet from under their feet so that, they're stumbling. That is a story. You give your characters a problem and make them somehow especially unequipped to deal with it, but secretly very well equipped to deal with it. And then your plot is them learning to solve this problem. So, how does the protagonist first want to solve this problem? So, this will be influenced by what kind of a person they are, what kind of person they believe they are. Again, their strengths and flaws. What are they good at? What do people say about the world? What kind of misconceptions or conceptions this person has about themselves, about the world, about the other people, about the problem? All kinds of things has an influence on this. How do they want to first solve the problem? Then, what is the real way to solve the problem? Because there should be the wrong way and the right way. But it could also be some kind of a surprising way to solve it. Or like, yes, it should almost always be surprising to your readers also. Something could change in the world that makes this problem solvable in a different way, for example. And then sometimes, yes, they do have the right idea of how it should be solved, but there are just so many obstacles in the way. Like in Lord of the Rings, Frodo does have to take the ring to the, what's it called? Mountain of Doom, maybe? I don't know. But he has to take the ring there, and that is the goal, and that is what he ends up doing. But there were just quite a few obstacles on the way and stuff. So, yeah, either this character has to find a different way of solving the problem, or maybe this problem is a different problem in disguise, or maybe they just don't have access to the right solution. There are a lot of different options there for solving this. So, yeah, and I've got some extra explanation here to really hone in on the help you hone in on this problem thing, because the problem is a problem and not just a regular Tuesday, precisely because your protagonist has specific flaws and existing problems and like these misconceptions and stuff that make it harder to solve the problem. But also, it's because they don't actually have the right solution off the bat. That's why it is a problem. If I tell you like, give me €5 or I'm going to I'm going to punch you in the face, and you have €5 in your pocket and you give it to me, then it wasn't a real problem, now was it? And that's how it should be for your characters as well. So even if they think they do have the right solution, they don't. And that's precisely why this problem is problem. And again, your readers also need to see why this is a problem. Otherwise, they're going to be like, so what? Why don't they just go home? You know. So yes, like I said earlier, the incorrect solution is colored by their flaws and misconceptions and beliefs and etc. Your character doesn't exist in a vacuum. So then you need to think, how does your protagonist need to change as a person to get to the right solution? And what kind of new skills and information do they need? And this is the material for your plot, this stuff, this problem solving things. And can't remember who said it. Well, probably a lot of people have said it, but like in the West, the problem structure, plot structure is generally like how we approach problems. Like we get a problem, we're like, oh yes, I know how to solve this. I'm going to do this. But then change is different, difficult. It's difficult to change as a person. And then when you try and fail, you learn new things. You go through character change, and then when you've tried enough, when you've been through it, when you've hit the rock bottom, you're like, oh, okay, now I see how this problem needs to be solved. So it's like that's how our brains work. That's why it's that's what makes this structure readable, and it works with so many stories. It's silly to be like, oh, but it's a formula. It's going to make every story the same. Well, look at different stories. They still work the same way, even if they are wildly different, because there are so many options there. But just the heart of the story is still the same, and that's a wonderful thing. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, anyway, moving on with with actual plots. So yeah, don't think of yet how what is going to change them, what events it's going to come up, but how do they need to change as a person, whether that's like on the inside or maybe it's something that they actually need to do differently, like with new skills or new information. And then what kind of people and events and circumstances and stuff are standing in the way of your protagonist finding the correct solution? And how could you perhaps add more of them along the way to make your plot to just have to go through more turns? If it's too straightforward, then it's boring and nobody will want to read it at least for a second time. And they won't be recommending it to their friends. And how do these protagonists' flaws and existing problems, how do they complicate things over the course of the story? Because like I said, they need to be relevant. They can't just be mentioned once and then it never manifests on the page in any way. So yeah, they need to be consequences, and that is also going to create your plot. It's going to give you more stuff for your story. Yes. And what are all the steps that your protagonist takes on their journey to solving this problem? So, what are the actual actions that they're going to do? How do they go one step forward and two steps two steps back? And you'll want to think of um, how your characters they will be learning new information and learning new things and then acting on it, and there will always be these sort of revelations like, oh, okay, not that way, oh well, that path is blocked, we need to do something else. So um this is missing now, because I do have so much stuff to say about plotting, but I could say more about the middle of your story, but I did add a link here, avoid the mushy middle. So that's going to help you with the middle of your story. What is needed there? I think I might have to. I did want to keep this brief. Also, there's so much more I could say about plotting. Yeah. Anyway, so that the middle especially should be a turning point in your story. But moving on to the last page of this planner. How does your protagonist eventually get to the right solution, especially when it's not how they initially thought that it would happen? And what are the specific plot events that you're going to need? And change and understanding they happen gradually. So isn't necessarily just one plot event that makes them say, oh yeah, yeah, now I understand it. It needs to be gradual, and they need to be like, oh, the answers were there all along. I was too silly to notice it. I was just too stubborn, you know. So, but also you can't just have them randomly change their mind or randomly get this idea of how to do this or randomly learn to do something. You need the plot to achieve that. A plot is a change-making machine that uses problems and obstacles to change your character into problem solver. All right. So, and then when does it seem absolutely impossible that the problem could be solved? Because we do need to go through hard times to be able to change and to have these massive changes and revelations about how to do stuff. Often in a story, things need to get really difficult before they can go right. So and just you need to take away all other options. The way to make your character do what you want them to do is to take away the options that the other options, the things that you don't want them to do. And if your character only does what they want to do, you've got a very boring story there. So just really push them and don't make it easy. And if there's just been an easy option the whole time and just your character's been ignoring it for like no reason, then your readers are going to be like, "Ooh, this makes no sense." So don't do that. And then what is the most drastic measure that your protagonist needs to take to solve the problem? And I've been talking about change here a lot, and you need to realize that this drastic measure, it can't be something that they could have been able to do in the beginning because they're not the same person as they were in the beginning of the story. At this point, when they're actually solving the problem, and they need to do something they wouldn't have been able to do before. So, what do they need to do to solve the problem? It often involves some kind of a sacrifice. So they could sacrifice maybe themselves or another character. an object, a goal, a belief, some kind of a perception. So something it needs to be something big, and you need to use your plot to make this possible. And then describe how your protagonist ultimately solves the problem. Um, so, like, what are the actual actions there? What do they actually do to solve it? How does it get solved? How do we see it happening? And then lastly, what is life like after the problem has been solved? And what is the protagonist's new normal like? And it could be mirroring the beginning of the story, but it does need to be different. This person has changed. Perhaps the world has changed as well. And you need to give your readers a glimpse of what is this new world like? And just exit sooner than they would want you to. Leave them wanting more. So yeah, that is how you plot a story. And if you want to understand any of these bits better, then do check out the extra material I've given you there. Now let's get back to the other camera country. And that's how you plot a novel. Do you have to do it in one day? Of course not. It's good to mull over these things, but you could. And yes, your plot could have a lot more detail than this, but I wanted to make this free tool easy to approach. And if I started talking about like everything that I know about plotting, that would be like hundreds and hundreds of pages. So let's not go there. But if you would like even more help with your plot, with every part of it, have me kind of hold your hand, then do check out your plot from A to Z. You don't need to use it just to outline your story. You can also apply it to your first draft to make your edits amazing. Now you go do that, and I will see you in another video.